Hello, good morning, bonjour, buongiorno. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Nice to have you back, everyone, at the iGaming Exchange monthly virtual meetup. We hope that you did not miss us a lot last month because we could not host the session because we were in Prague hosting a conference. But today we have such a great session coming up, and it's a pleasure to have Claire Pinson-Bessonnet joining us and talk about the French market because this market is often ignored, but it's very important, and those who know it's important are actually already active in the market. But yeah, we will tell you all about it later. Claire, nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
All right. So before we dive into this, to the questions today, could you just let the audience know who they're dealing with today, and so maybe tell a bit about your background and your company?
Of course. Well, actually, I became a lawyer 17 years ago and registered to the Paris bar in 28 as an IP lawyer. And after 4 years of private practice, I was entrusted with leading international and European affairs for ARGEL, which was the French online gambling regulator. It became ING in 2020. I spent 7 years with the regulator. I chaired the Gambling Regulator European Forum, so the European Association of Gambling Regulators. I also installed and chaired the CEN, which is the European Standardization Committee Working Group dedicated to the development of standards, voluntary technical standards on online gambling. Then I went on a mission abroad as Chief Compliance Officer and Money Laundering Reporting Officer for a Spanish online operator with licenses in Malta, in the UK, and in Sweden. In 2021, I came back to Paris and joined the Parisian law firm as head of regulatory affairs. And after more than 3 years with them, I founded my own law firm, which is CPB Avocat, last year in June. And it is focusing actually on public regulatory affairs, which means lobbying mostly in technical regulated fields. And of course, given my background, gambling and gaming are in the scope.
All right, thank you so much. And I hope that the audience is already excited about what you're going to be sharing, because that's one hell of a background right there. So uh, I'm really interested about uh, your CPB advocates specializes in gaming and tech law, right? So could you dive into the regulatory landscape and tell us a bit about that?
Sure. The current regulatory landscape in France has been evolving over the past 5 years, actually. As everybody knows, the market opened up to competition in 2010 for online gambling. So we have this sector, online gambling, that is growing. We have land-based monopolies on the side, which is the lottery one, FDJ, now FDJ United, land-based casinos, and land-based horse racing with the PMU. So there are, despite the entrance of new players, the French market is consolidating, namely with the last acquisitions of dominant players like FDJ United, for example, with the Turf, and more recently Kindred, so Unibet. And we still in 2024, but if we make projections on the ground of the first semester 2024, the market in 2024 should follow the trend we saw in 2023, which means lottery first, with around 6.7 billion euros GGR, then land-based casinos, which is the second sector with 2.8 billion euros GGR, then online gambling with 2.33 billion euros GGR, and finally the land-based horse racing with only 1.73 billion euros GGR. So it means that during the first semester 2024, online sports betting alone generated more GGR than land-based horse racing, and online sports betting generated more GGR than land-based horse racing and drives the market, while online poker is increasing, but at a lower pace. So the French market is dynamic, but the balance of powers between the different segments, different sectors is changing, with a potential impact on the balanced development of various games, which means on the economic stability of the different sectors.
All right, so that's good to hear. So I'm interested in from your point of view, how would you describe the current sentiment in France around iGaming, betting, and also esports? Is it cautious optimism or heavy regulation or is it innovation ready?
Well, actually, I would go for cautious optimism because the market is dynamic. Regulation in France has always been very serious. So while there is no change about that, there will be innovations of for example, the games with digital monetizable objects, which are mainly inspired by Web3 games, play to earn, actually, and that will be regulated, that will be supervised by ING. Secondary legislation is on its way, and it should be ready for next September. With regards to the question everyone is probably asking himself or herself, with regards to online casinos, there have been talks for several years now, attempts in the last budgetary discussions. But as you probably know, we changed government often. I mean, in the last 6 months or year or so,
Yeah.
and the attempt was to put to provide for online casino regulation in the last budgetary text, where the initiative of the former government, it changed end of December, and the position of the new government on gambling is not the one of the previous one. So the previous one decided to launch some consultation with different stakeholders to see if there was really will to proceed with online casinos in France. And those consultations were stopped when the new government was established, and there are currently no concrete signs that it will resume, but it has to be put in perspective with the development of illegal offer, and also the shape of the operators, the industry is actually advocating for that. Not all of it, because of course there is here a debate between uh,
All right. I
online
think there.
operators.
All right. So I think Claire, you have some connection problems because it has frozen. So could you just go log out and log in back to this call? All right. So yeah, we are experiencing a small technical issue from probably from the Zoom connection. So we will wait until Claire reestablishes her connection. In the meantime, if you have some questions, guys, make sure to send them over to our LinkedIn or YouTube channel. Let's see. All right, so let's just like wait for Claire to reconnect. And as I told you, this is a monthly show we are hosting. It's available live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. The recording is also available after the show ends. If you would like to join one of these sessions as a guest, make sure to email us or reach out to our team. We are happy to include you. And of course, if you have some interesting topics that you would like to discuss or share with your connection, we are also open to hosting a webinar or a similar talk every 2 weeks. Just email us or contact us on social media. And yeah, we'll just now wait for Claire to come back, log in back. Let's see what happens with her connection.
Hi again.
All right, good. Now it's way better. Good to
Okay, it's
be.
way better. Sorry about that. Actually, well, sorry about that. Small technical
No
problem.
worries.
Where were we?
So basically, you got cut off when you were already started to talk about the current sentiment, and you said it's cautious optimism. After that, it started freezing, and so if you could repeat maybe this
Yeah, of
reply, it would
course.
be great.
Of course. So I would go for cautious optimism. As I said before, the market is dynamic, and there will be some innovations on this market. First of all, which is certain, is the launch of a new type of games, which is inspired by Web3 games and play to earn, which are games with digital monetizable objects, who will be placed under the supervision of ANG, and secondary legislation is on its way, and it's probably going to be published in next September. And then we get all these discussions that have been occurred since over the past few years about online casinos, and the attempt of the former government to introduce that in the budgetary text. But as you know, I mean, the political situation in France is not that stable, and we have a new we have a new government since end of December, and the position of this new government is not the same as the previous one on gambling. So the previous government launched a kind of cycle of consultation to see how the opening up of online casinos could be done, but those consultations were stopped when the new government came in power, and there is no concrete sign that it will be launched again. Still, I mean, the online operators here and their association is, of course, advocating for this opening up, but you have here some kind of antagonistic interests between online operators on one hand and namely land-based casino on the other hand. So some say that the current shape of the public finances in France would trigger some faster decision on that. Not true. We'll see. But in any case, I mean, the position of online and land-based should be conciled. So we'll see in the coming months and the coming years. But there are at the moment, no concrete sign of the resuming of the consultation that were launched before the end of 2024.
All right, that's good to hear. But before we move to the French gambling and betting market, there's a question from the audience from
Sure.
Peter Neal. He says that he says first, welcome back, and this, the connection is way
Hi.
better now. So we are. They say that they are working with a number of iGaming and betting institutions to
Yes.
innovate throughout enabling crypto transactions
Yes.
rather than just fiat. So the question is, are you seeing anything innovative on the regulatory side on this matter outside of MiCA? So are there any developments in terms of enabling crypto transactions?
Well, not sure because, as you know, I mean, the first well, the MiCA France has played a role in shaping MiCA because the first legislation which inspired MiCA was a national one, and outside MiCA, I'm not sure, and I'm not even sure that is well into question at the moment because until agreements given by the financial regulator are given to stakeholders, I'm not even sure that this question can be asked. And also, well, this question of a payment in crypto is well, we've been talking about that for 4 years. The main issue is also an issue of consumer law because of the volatility of the crypto. So this is also another point or another argument for which it's difficult to conceive. But in any case, outside of MiCA, no.
All
and
right.
well, the main well and the traditional arguments with regards to payment in cryptocurrencies are still alive.
All right, good to know. So, Peter, I hope that this answers your question. Maybe you can contact Claire for maybe some unofficial replies that you can get. Yeah, we have been
Always happy to
reporting.
help.
Yeah, we've been reporting about the launch of Olibet into the French sports betting market, which is Olibet is a Baltic company. So what does the entrance of a new operator tells us about the France's licensing attractiveness? Because it's very interesting to see a an outside player coming into the market.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what does it mean? First, probably that the French online sports betting market is attractive, as illustrated by the figures. On S1 2024, it gained 16% of GGR, which means 871 million euros. And if you double it, so if you double it and you get an estimate over 2024, it means 1.7 billion euros GGR only for online sports betting in France. So it's attractive. Second, that maybe some online operators are expecting the opening up of online casinos in France and may be willing to enter the market beforehand. And namely because Olibet acquired the well-known and self-explicit trademark France Paris. .fr. So it means that entering the market beforehand will get time will give them time to get known on the market, to get the trademark Olibet known on the market before, well, if it opens, if online casino open up one day, and will prevent them to spend too much in advertising when it does, if it does. Because as you probably know, there is a 10% tax that will be introduced on operators' advertising expenditure as of July 2025. And Olibet is, well, actually currently only licensed in France for online sports betting, but is providing online casinos elsewhere. So those may be the reasons the reasons why the market is attractive on the segment of online sports betting, but also it enables to set on the market and to maybe and to get their proprietary trademark known before there is well, they can expand their activity if ever online casinos opens up in France.
All right. So at the beginning, I told you France
Yeah.
is an attractive market, and not many are expanding there or looking into it because they are too tied up with other markets, and of course, flooding to the US now with all the states that are opening up. So how do you assess the competitiveness of France online betting and gaming sector compared to the other EU markets, like let's say your neighboring countries like Spain, Italy, or maybe even Germany?
Well, in what we see is that on online gambling sector, the if you double once again, because we're still waiting for the compiled 2024 figures from the regulator, but if you double the numbers or the evolution on the first semester 2024, you see that online gambling operators generated 2.6 billion euros GGR. France is a market with no online casinos and where the growth is driven by online sports betting and on which operate a relatively small number of licensed operators compared to Italy, for example. Well, the French market is big for Europe with 60 million inhabitants compared to, for example, Germany with 84. But if you compare, if you take online sports betting only, for example, the French market generates 1 billion euros GGR more than the German one. So 2.6 billion euros in France versus 1.5 billion in Germany. And the other markets, neighboring markets, big markets, Spain, 50 million inhabitants, Italy, 60 million inhabitants, Germany, 84, as we said. Those markets are mainly driven by online gambling markets are mainly driven by online casinos. In Germany in 2024, the online gambling market generated 3.3 billion euros GGR, with online casinos generating almost 2 times the GGR generated by online sports betting. 2.8 billion for online casinos, 1.5 billion euros for online sports betting. The projected Italian casino gambling GGR in 2024 is even higher, with 3.2 billion euros, growing by 16% compared to 2023. And the Spanish online gambling GGR plus 15% compared to 2023 is driven by online casino and online sports betting. So it means that without one of the main segments
Yeah.
of online, the French market is quite competitive, for a market without online casinos.
All right, so it makes sense for France to open up for online casinos as well, because it will definitely be one of the top ones in the region.
Yeah, well, it is, as the regulator said already, it is quite a political decision.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense. It means that it would, in any case, create GGR, that's for sure. Then it's a political decision because, as we see in neighboring markets, when online casinos are open, they take the lead. And for example, I mean, well, we saw that in UK as early as at the end of the 2010s,
Yeah.
and we saw that it was the first segment on the UK market. So it makes sense depending from where you are looking at the situation. It would create GGR, but it would drive probably new players within gambling with the social cost associated to that, and hence the political nature of the decision to find the right balance.
All right, so there is another question from LinkedIn coming from Lex Ripas. He's watching us from the Philippines and asking about are there any specific challenges or opportunities unique to French market that international brands should be aware of?
So challenge and opportunities unique to the French market. That's it. That is the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess you have many shared concerns among regulated markets. The lack, of course, well, the fact that France doesn't have the whole scope of online gambling activities is something that is a French specificity. You have also probably the strengths of the technical regulation in France. You have also the historical organization of land-based and online. And the fact that we have at the moment that consolidation on the market I mentioned earlier with a huge player, which is FDJ United, which is on all the segments and is holding exclusive rights on lottery, which is the first segment. You have also, well, the fact that that the monopolistic land-based operators, historical ones, have this presence on the territories and have missions also, sometimes public service missions linked to the territory. I think about, but maybe we'll talk about it later, I think about land-based casinos which are tied with municipalities and linked to the development of tourism, linked to the development of culture, and which have in their licenses several missions to reflect that. I think about land-based horse racing as well, which is dedicated finally to rural development. So there are specificities and what we see maybe, which is a new trend also, is that the growth of online gambling in France is now getting the sector ahead of one of the historical land-based sector, which is horse racing, land-based horse racing.
All right, so let's also talk about this compliance size before move to the land-based casinos. So the Argel now is ANJ, I think for a couple of years now has been quite active, and we really like their approach being so open and transparent with the media and online media of the gaming industry and communicating. So we are also interested about what compliance hurdles are there for newcomers facing when entering the French market?
Yeah. So according to the regulator, the current consolidation of the market and the arrival of new players on the market are likely to increase the intensity of competition between operators and to stimulate demand for gambling. So it means that the compliance hurdles for newcomers would be mostly focused on commercial communications and responsible gaming. This is one of the clear focus, and you have also taxation. It's not directly compliance, but it's linked to it. Because there is a move that we can notice in the last budgetary text with the fact that social contribution have been added to what the operators used to pay, and there is some kind of behavioral taxation, namely the 15% of on operators' advertising expenditure that will be live as of July 2025. So commercial communications, responsible gaming, and also probably technical regulation. But I mean, well, this is the regulator. When you listen to the regulator, as you say, it's pretty clear, and they regulate by objective, by legislative objective, and the protection of players and the prevention of excessive gambling is one of the objective. And but given the movements on the market, maybe their focus would be on commercial communication and responsible gaming, which is sustained by the movement we see with regards to taxation. But the qualification of behavioral taxation is the first time we have that, in budgetary tax. So it is, and it's not a trend that is going to disappear like that.
All right. So by the way, to our listeners, Claire will be joining us in Warsaw in October. We can meet her in person, and of course, give an update about these July updates, which are going to be enforced by then. So let's talk about also casinos and land-based expansions, because we have been reporting about the Golden Palace Group, who have opened their fourth casino in France already. So how receptive are the French regulators to the expansion of land-based gaming, given the fact that they would probably like in the future to have online casinos, but the land-based activity in France is, I think, one of the most popular ones in Europe.
Yeah, probably. Actually, well, Casino Golden Palace Tonon-les-Bains will open in 2027. And we saw all the moves on the land-based casino sector with the acquisition by Novomatic of Viking Group, which owns 10 casinos land-based. As I began to mention earlier, land-based casinos are not only gambling services providers. They are also tasked with entertainment and catering services that are prerequisites for the grant of the licenses. They have those three types of attributions because historically, casino establishments are mainly linked to touristic areas. So in the context of scarcity of local and national public finances, the establishment of a casino helps develop the tourism, support culture, and helps finance municipalities, namely small ones, as a direct levy that is going to the local budget can amount to 15% of the GGR of the casino. So, well, there is, this is really the historic and traditional dimension here. Casinos are dedicated to the development of touristic areas, which explains that there are places and regions in France where you have much less casinos than in others because they are linked to tourism. It's set like that in the law, which dates back 19th century actually. Land-based horse racing is dedicated to horse breeding and the development of rural development in the countryside, very much in the territories. So it's an agricultural sector. And FDJ United now maintains a network of around 30,000 sales outlets in more than 11,000 French towns and villages. So usually, because of this those close links with the French territories, land-based monopoly operators, because they have this nationwide coverage, are generally well considered by the authorities.
All right. So are there any significant differences in compliance requirements for land-based casinos versus online gaming platforms in France that maybe the operators who are listening should be aware of?
There are plenty,
All right.
actually. First, land-based casinos are not only regulated by ING, they are also under the authority of the Ministry for Home Affairs. For example, the on-site inspections are carried out by a specialized service of the judicial police. ING for casinos is only in charge of the problem gambling prevention side of the supervision. Then authorization to open or to acquire as well a casino in France are delivered by both the town where the establishment will be located and the Ministry for Home Affairs. The Ministry for Home Affairs is namely in charge of background checks and inquiring on the reputation of the applicant. As we already mentioned, the establishment of a new land-based casino in France is conditioned, well, legally speaking, by touristic, cultural, and demographic characteristics of the location. So many cities are not entitled to host a casino on their territories. And also there is, well, the taxation side. Casinos apply a rate of return to the player of around 93% and pay almost 55% of their GGR in tax deductions. So there is a progressive levy that goes directly to the municipality where the casinos are located. And you get a progressive levy that goes to the state, but of which 10% can come back to the municipality as well. And you get social contributions that will raise as of July 2025. There are two social contributions, and one will raise by then. So those are the big picture, but it's different. Supervision is different. Implementation, people who supervise are not exactly the same. Automation is not at the same level. There are many differences in the way they operate.
All right. So let's also move to esports to cover that topic as well, because we know that France in Europe is the capital of unions, right? So you have the fraternité, égalité, Beyoncé, as we like to say in our part of the world. Uh, and yeah, we had seen some headlines about the French Union of Professional Esports Clubs. This is something a very interesting initiatives, and so I'm interested after reading this news. I was very curious about the legal perspective of this. So, how significant is this move for esports ecosystems in general in terms of the union ecosystem as well?
Sure. Well, you probably saw Team Vitality's Grand Slam at the Extreme
Yeah.
Masters of Melbourne. Well, actually, it was 3 days ago, and it was held by the French President Emmanuel Macron himself. So, and it just so happens that the union is chaired, but the union you're referencing to is chaired by the CEO of Team Vitality.
Okay.
The recent creation of this union marks, I guess, an important point in the structuring of esports in France. Until now, the sector was only collectively represented by France Esports, which was established in 2016 to bring together publishers, organizers, but not teams of players nor fans. And the aim of this new union is to federate and structure an ecosystem and better defend the interests of major French esports clubs and fans, the ones who were not that much represented in French esports, in their dealings with public authorities, but also with tournament organizers and publishers. It means that, well, teams and fans will now formally be represented in the public debate and will have, well, an organized influence on the organization of the sector in France. In France, you have 230 professional players. The French esport industry employs around 1,000 people. French clubs bring together more than 7 million fans aged between 18 and 34. And as you mentioned, it's a key destination for major international events. So, well, in a nutshell, the creation of this union is balancing the debate on how to structure the ecosystem in France, because now all the stakeholders are represented.
All right. So would you say that now esports clubs and tournaments are now closer to being regulated, similarly to traditional sports organizations in France?
I'm not sure about that because, well, ecosystems and stakeholders of esports and sports are different, and some are of the view that the structuration of esports cannot be the same as in sports with federation. If we go back to the creation, well, if we go back to France esports, we see that the association aim its aim as early as 2016 was to develop esports in a spirit that is in the line with the values and key principle of Olympism. But they never have been seeking to have esport recognized as a sport. Instead, they are working to bring esport world and sports world closer together so they can feed off each other. For example, one of the aim was to integrate esports into the Olympic ecosystem. So the esport Olympic Games announced for postponed and announced for 2027 will be, as the IOC said already clearly, distinct from the organization and the financial model of the traditional Olympic Games. Although when you have international federations already involved in an electronic version of their sport and national Olympic committees that include esports in their activity, they could be involved in the organization of these esport Olympic Games. What we see is that, well, both sectors are, well, they are not composed the same. But they have common, well, interest and identical issues, and well, they're working in parallel. But a recognition of esports into sports, well, actually, it's not something that the association that represent the sector are asking for. So I'm not sure really.
All right, so we have seen that any brand out there is considering a sponsorship for an esports team or a player. Lots of big, even lots of big French brands have been cited as they are sponsoring this team or that team. So I'm interested about the legal risks, or maybe let's say even opportunities. So where do you see the biggest legal risks or opportunities for companies that are investing in esports in France? And let's talk about also player contracts, sponsorship deals, like I mentioned, and even betting on the esports matches, because this is what's the industry like.
Sure. Well, in France, video games competitions have been regulated since 2016. The organization is regulated, but the organization of video games competitions does not include the organization of betting on this competition. So this is one question. It has never been reopened since then. It has been set like that, and well, never been reopened so far. But the creation of this new union, with teams, of players and fans, the key issue will without doubt, one of the key issues will be on the contracts with players. So to support players throughout their careers, to how to formalize a professional network, tailor-made arrangement for training while carrying on the studies, creation of dedicated training courses, a proposal for post-career retraining, and also setting up a simplified legal network for facilitating visas during the mercato periods, for example. Also protection of mental health, and with particular attention to the danger of cyberbullying. I guess that, yes, the focus will be, of course, it is on the arrangement and the financial arrangements, but it would be, I mean, well, the voice of the players and of the team will be even more heard since the creation of the union, so that the question of contracts of players would be probably at the forefront. And also you have talks with municipalities, in the countries, to get some subventions and things like that. So this structuration, but more with the view of players, of teams, how to facilitate the team, the organization within a team. How do you employ, or is it employment contracts, another type of contract, and things like that. So I guess the attention would be on that, namely.
All right, so let's also talk about the regulatory compliance and some future trends as well. So we know that France has been traditionally strict on advertising rule when it comes to gambling operators, and there is this evolving consumer habit around Europe and around the world about VPNs maybe and accessing other types of advertising that are maybe banned in certain countries. So do you expect maybe for further tightening or more relaxed approach from the regulatory perspective, given the fact that the world is evolving and advertisement cannot be like banned as usually?
Yeah, well, I mean, France has been strict, but has been, there was never a ban on advertising in France compared to other jurisdictions
Yeah.
in Europe. With regards to online, it was almost, it began with self-regulation. As in Spain, but it didn't end up on a ban. And we see also that those trends in the countries where advertising sponsoring was banned, and we're going back with Italy considering to allow again sponsoring, and with Spain that is leveraging the ban on advertising. In France, it came, the progression was more linear. Self-regulation, not enough, so more prescriptive. As I already mentioned, the regulator regulates by objective. And so here there is a focus on commercial communication because the regulation on commercial communication had to become more prescriptive because some of operators placed themselves at the border and were not, and this is one of the requests of the regulator today in France, were not explicit enough about commercial incentive, or also went too far. Namely, I think about some advertisement for online sports betting, that were considered by the regulator, but also public decision makers at large, and then also by people and civil society, and so it moved back to the people themselves that were considered too much appealing on vulnerable people. And at that point, there was this shift where the regulation began to be more prescriptive because it was no more only a discussion between operators and the regulator, but it became a political discussion and then a social discussion. And then now and then guidelines were published by the regulator and things like that. I mean, the framework has been specified, so it can be easier for operators to implement it. But the main request of the regulator now is for the operator is be more explicit about commercial incentive, and which is more difficult to get completely, and implement a principle of moderation. So it means that this principle of moderation can be applied in several ways. So it's probably depending on how the operators will endorse this principle of moderation in their commercial communication. we'll see if it will, if the regulation will tighten or stay like that. But it's when you say the principle of moderation, you can have many examples on how it can be done. And in support of this focus on commercial communication, you have that behavioral taxation and advertising. So the
All right.
trend is not really towards a more relaxed approach, I guess.
All right. So that's good to hear, and also bad to hear in some cases. So, what about responsible gambling initiatives? Because you touched based on the topic earlier, and I'm interested about how are the regulators pushing this agenda today, and what should the operators be prepared for over the next 1 or 2 years? Because as we know, these initiatives take time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, and here we saw a change between, because, well, of course they don't have the same scope of action, but there has been a change between Argel and ING. ING first, when it was established in 2020, first adopted a kind of UK style non-prescriptive responsible gambling guidelines. And really, when you see the British guidelines and the French guidelines, well, you can tell yourself that they are on the same page, of well, they are very similar. But and now, well, there is a kind of shift where the French regulator comes back to more prescriptive, as Argel was. Argel was probably more prescriptive than ING on those topics, to more prescriptive positions and recommendations toward the operators, probably because it's easier for the operators to implement when it's clearer. And for example, in a recent interview, the chair of ING announced that the regulator will provide operators with tools such as an algorithm that would enable to unify the indicators of problem gambling. And this algorithm should be available to operators in a few months' time to ensure that everyone uses the same approach. So we see this kind of trend of more specific, because, well, using an algorithm is one of the good practices that already appears in the guidelines, but it has never been, well, put at the disposal of the operators for them to implement. But when the regulator is asking operators in almost all its decisions on their responsible gaming annual plans, for this year, the ING is asking the operators to identify more excessive gamblers and more problem gamblers in their customers. Well, now we see that the the regulator in parallel is trying to give operators tools to fulfill its requests.
All right, so there is a question from Albin Lozar. I either way almost wanted to touch base on poker because, as we know, there's the shared liquidity between the French and Spanish players, as I know. So Albin Lozar is asking that online and live games in casinos, how big is poker in France, and how complicated it is to legally introduce a completely new type of card game that is played between the players, like the poker players, basically.
Okay. What we see, and you mentioned it earlier, is that swiftness of gameplay is something that is in the new habits. So you get, well, types of poker that go fast are the most are those with the biggest increase on the French market. But I guess it's probably much comparable to what we see on other markets. Poker is not is increasing, but not at the same pace. Online poker is increasing, but not at the same pace as sports betting. It's the second segment in online market in France, so it's increasing with a number of players that is increasing, but slowly, and with a focus on very speedy games. How is it? Well, when the market was opened up in 2010, what the law says is it's opened up on three sectors: online sports betting, online horse racing betting, and online circle games. And so that's the law. And then you get the secondary legislation, and you have secondary legislation that authorizes poker games. And then you get the several variants of pokers inside. So how difficult it is, I guess it would, it would require first to probably ask a question to the regulator that would endorse this move or this request as soon as you have several players, several stakeholders on the market that could be interested. And because there are several variants of pokers that have been that are authorized, they have they have increased over time. So it's a question of trend. I mean, here you can enter into a dialogue with the regulator. The regulator could assess the will or the interest on the French market, and then, if it is a shared interest between online poker operators, it is something that it is on at the regulatory level. It's not at the legal level, it's at the regulatory level. So it means that it's a decision that is not taken, that is taken without going through Parliament. So it's probably easier, but you need the drive behind to say, everyone agrees on the fact that we should have more or different of what would be, and then you enter into the dialogue with the regulator, what would be acceptable for you, given that we have this interest, and on which ground can we reach an agreement on which type on which new types of online poker would we see developments, but it's on the regulatory level.
All right, so let's also talk about cross-border gambling, which is a sensitive issue in the EU. It has been sensitive for the past 10, 15 years. Nothing is, I think, going further, and nothing has advanced, and it's sad to see this. But I'm interested about how harmonized is France with the neighboring jurisdictions, and were there any major challenges that still exist?
Well, actually, you know that the French regulator is very much into international
Yeah.
cooperation, chairing the graph once again, and
Yes.
and also having close talks to with the with European continental regulators around, and for that it has begun as an informal talks, but the regulators meet twice a year, and usually twice a year, and of big countries: Germany, Austria, Italy, Spain, Portugal, France. And so, there is a kind of informal group. So there are talks, and of course that there is cooperation. So on cross border, there is graph. There is more informal cooperation of the group of regulators, and you also have a privileged probably dialogue between French-speaking regulators. So the idea is on land-based, people crossing the border to go and play when living in the north of France, to go and play in Belgium, when living on the Swiss border I mean, it is something that we see, that we've been seeing for years. And this is something that is taken into account. Then afterwards, if you Well, I guess that your question was only for land-based.
No. I'm referring to online.
Okay. And then for online, well, the idea is that, well, you mentioned the use of VPNs. The most now, almost all the jurisdictions are regulated in Europe. So the idea is that operators cannot, are supposed to take only people who declare themselves as living in the
Yeah.
jurisdiction. And so, and of course, the question is, and it's one of the arguments of the online gambling industry in France for opening up online casinos. The question is on sectors that are not regulated. But it's always, well, the same positioning. Operators regulate what's going on in their borders. So they can probably the mission of a regulator. The mission of a regulator is probably to give the means to the player to play safely on a regulated and legal offer in the jurisdiction. But does the mission of a regulator extend to those players that are will use all the technical means to go and play on legal offer? So it's always the question of where up to which level the mission and the action of a national regulator can go. So
Yeah, that's
that
about it
well,
on that. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. So, since we have you here, and thank you for your time,
no,
maybe
my pleasure.
you can give some free advices for the
Sure.
audience. So based on your experience, what are the top three legal mistakes that gaming companies make when entering or expanding into France?
Not sure there are, I'm not sure there are mistakes. I'm not sure they are legal, but I will try. I will answer the question anyway. The first one is, don't be confused. The regulator is not the legislator.
Yeah.
So this is something we see, but not only in France. So when you say yes, the regulator, when some say, well, yes, the regulator doesn't want to do that and doesn't want to do that, ask yourself the question, does it have the power to do what you are asking him to do? I go back to online casinos. Well, I go back to what ING told about online casinos. I think it was namely in last October. This is a highly political decision that will be taken by people who take political decisions. What can do ING, for example, on online casinos is give advice. When it is asked to give advice by ministries and or ministers directly, but it cannot. Well, it's not in his realm to propose some kind of legislation. It takes decisions, administrative decisions, but well, that are within its power. But my point is, don't ask the regulators things that it can't do, and don't blame it for not doing things it can't do, legally
Yeah.
speaking. Then it's not really legal, it's more kind of strategic advice. It would be dialogue. Your relationship with the regulator is not limited to compliance issues. Be here, enter into dialogue, namely when you are a newcomer, that will enable to know more people you will report to, for them to know you more, to build trust. So enter into a dialogue, because it is then easier for any issue that can arise, or even, I mean, the very interesting question on poker. If you enter into a dialogue, or if you are into a dialogue with the regulator, this is an idea that you can test. You can say, well, to a director of markets or innovation, you can say, well, actually, it could be interesting to maybe renew to update the type of poker variants that are authorized on the, and I talked with fellow regulator operators and give international examples, things like that. So dialogue, because this is not one way. Regulation is both ways of dialogue, and it's a regulator of an economic market. So we need to know what you need and what works, what doesn't work, because it's not the legislator, but it's still the regulator. So it means it can shape or ease some points using tools like legal tools that are in its power. And then maybe, it's more a piece of advice, but it would be, listen. So dialogue, but listen what the regulator says. Understand what is the state of mind. It regulates by objective. You get, several legislative objective to gambling regulation in France. So put yourself in the shoes, try to put yourself in the shoes of the regulator, because sometimes there are the blocking points that are just explainable by the fact that you will ask something that it's not possible, and or they will not understand what you need or what you are asking, because private sector is not always talking the same language as the public one.
All right, so that's one fair and great point, and we've been telling this to our connections and our people attending the conferences. Do not blame the regulator for these type of things, because there's the legislator, and the regulator only has the power to advise and tell them, but it's all political. Everything happens like that, so the decisions are not on the regulator. They just advise, and that's why we also encourage the regulators to attend such sessions, so that gives them an opportunity to talk with the operators who might be thinking otherwise. So maybe another advice to foreign operators is about what should be their thinking when entering the French market in maybe this year or next year. What would your advice be to them? Of course, besides contacting you first.
Thanks. What should be their seeking? We are not sure about what is going on the scope of the legal offer. This is a dynamic market, but all markets can be, you get improvements. You can find improvements to be implemented on every market. I mean, for example, the French online gambling regulation dates back 2010. It has evolved then, but poker online offer, as you mentioned, if there is a need over here, technical regulation, for example, using more AI, and we're going to that idea also with the algorithm I mentioned earlier. So kind of modernization and to make that evolve. Talk to the regulator. Really, that would be my piece of advice, and also maybe and also talk to the regulator, but according to what it can do. And you have other people to talk to, maybe, for legislative matters. Things that require a change of legislation. It's not ultimately the regulator, the good people to talk to. You will find support in unions, associations, but in any case, this it's my point. Come with facts. Fact-based policy making is always better. So when you assess the size of an illegal market, it should be something that is documented. When you assess, the GGR, that a segment that is not open could could generate come with tangible facts. Come with tangible facts and with international comparisons as well in countries where there are things that you'd like to be implemented. So really, give arguments to the people you talk to, be they the regulator or legislators or the government or whoever you are talking to. Come with facts, because as the more that your demands will be grounded, the more they can use the facts and check the facts that you are providing them, the more your demand, and it's true whatsoever, has some chance to succeed.
All right, so let's look ahead, and I would like to ask you about what developments in the French gaming law are you personally most excited or maybe concerned about in the next few years?
It will be law, but it will be also the context. First, as touched upon earlier in this exchange, the games with digital monetizable prices or objects in it. So it is intended to boost Web3 gaming and to provide a framework, a legal framework for the safe development of play to earn, finally. So it means, legally speaking, the creation of a new category of games between video games and gambling. It was enacted in the law last year, and secondary legislation should be ready in September. So we'll see what it gives. It means, we'll see the development of this market. It is not regulated per se, it's supervised by IMG. It means that gaming data will not be retrieved as it is in gambling, but otherwise, mostly all the supervision framework is mainly a copy paste of what you can find, except the technical regulation of what you can find on online gambling. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops, if it develops as expected. To be noted as well, the mandate of ING chair is 6 years, and Madame Isabelle Falpierrotin began chair in 2020. So it means there
Yep.
will be a change in presidency next year. It has an influence on the positioning and on the decisions that can be taken, even when it is decision that the regulator can take directly. And we'll see for online casinos, while there is some kind of, there is a lot of wishful thinking, I guess. But will it become concrete at one point? It would be very interesting to see the link that we talked about of land-based casinos to with the territories is something that is very powerful. You get a land-based you get some operators like Novomatic acquiring, a group, a land-based to maybe thinking about some kind of a Belgian or Swiss style regulation in France, to be seen. But in any case, I mean, there will be, this balance between purely online, and land-based, purely land-based, and some kind of, some ideas about joint venture, if ever the decision is taken to open the sector. So we'll see. And
All right.
and once again, it much depends on the positioning of governments. And Gouvernement Barnier, of Michel Barnier, was more open probably to gambling issues because of his former position as European Commissioner and things like that. The position of François Bayrou on gambling is really different. So it will depend also on the next political changes in France.
All right. So as closing Imagine you're in a room with Miss Isabelle, Emmanuel Macron, and François Bayrou, and
Yeah,
they have like,
great.
yeah, so they have 1 or 2 minutes to talk to you before they move on to the next advisor. So they are asking you quick answers about the regulation in France. So are you saying is it too strict, just right, overdue for modernization?
One can always modernize.
All
One
right.
can always modernize to maintain to maintain its namely its technological advance.
All right. So of course, Francois Bayrou is asking you because, like you said, he's not that well connected into the industry. So do we think esports is a sport or a form of entertainment?
Well, personally, I will quote Ralph Reichert, who was CEO of Electronic Sports League, at a conference in 2019 in Cannes. He said, in the end, we produce a media product.
Yeah. All right. So that makes sense. I hope they understand your reply. So, and they're also interested about your opinion about land-based or online. So which sector has more legal work ahead?
Both, but on different issues.
All right.
And it's kind of both, really both, and not at all on the same issues. Yet implementation of the current scope that could be completed for some online, for some land-based operators. The fact that the identification or prevention of underage gambling land-based, which is not the case in casinos where they ask for ID cards before you enter in casinos. And well, on online, I think legally you can do things to, for example, enhance supervision or technical regulation that would require maybe legal changes, but could be useful because, well, when it opened to regulation, technical French technical regulation was really one of the most beyond state of the art, and to keep this technological advance, I think that's, well, it could be useful it could be useful to have a look at the changes, namely legal ones that can be necessary.
All right. So I think the answers were great for them, and I hope that they hear it.
Now
Uh,
we sure. I hope as
yeah.
well.
Thank you so much, Claire, for your time
Thank
and for
you.
our audience for sticking around. And thank you guys for the great questions you've been
Yes.
sending. And yeah, like I said, you can reach out to Claire on LinkedIn or browse their website, CPB Advocates. Uh, and yeah, you can meet her in Warsaw at the end of the almost end of the year at the end of October to have questions for her in person or maybe attend a session about the updates. So again, have an awesome day, everyone, and take good care. We will be back next month. You can watch the recording on the iGaming Knowledge Hub on European Gaming, and of course here on LinkedIn and on